Hello and welcome. This video is all about an amazing place that I'd like to share with you. It's called McCrossins Mill. The mill was built by Alexander Mitchell for John McCrossin and started operation around 1872. The mill was equipped with a 16 horsepower steam engine which was able to drive 3 sets of millstones and haul the wheat to the top floor by a series of leather belts with small zinc buckets contained within. In the early days of the colony, each area had to produce its own grain and its own bread to feed its people. With the advent of the railroad in the late 1800s, many local mills ceased to be viable and were forced to close by the import of cheaper, better quality grain from elsewhere. The milling machinery is no longer in the building, but you can still see other artefacts from that time, including some found under the floorboards. The Rocky River goldfield was first discovered in 1851. By 1856, it was a thriving goldfield, and around that time, diggers from China began to arrive. The McCrossins Mill Museum houses a large collection of artefacts and information about the Chinese gold mining history of the area, and this is a remarkable find when so little of it has been preserved in Australia. The Chinese miners were not welcomed by the European and Australian miners. They were vilified in the news and petitions were raised against them. Eventually legislation was passed to reduce their impact or to charge them a toll for even entering. Chinese temples like this one would have stood in many of the areas where the Chinese settled. However, very few of them were preserved, and this is the only one that I've seen, particularly in this condition, and it's a remarkable thing to visit and see. Long before the Europeans or the Chinese came to this area, it was inhabited by the Anawan people. The museum houses a touching display which gives us some idea of the daily life of these people, as well as preserving some of the cultural traditions that these people would have observed and lived by for thousands of years. But the Europeans came, and with them came a changing of agriculture and a whole array of innovation and new ideas into the area. In the 1830s, graziers pushed through into the New England area from the Hunter Valley. They kept moving their way north, ever north, and eventually roads and railroads followed them, with the connection of rail to Uralla in 1882. Prior to that, it was all horses and bullocks. There was ever a great divide between the lives of the rich and powerful and the poor and humble. Many of the pioneers had to make their own items, furniture, and everything else that they wanted. There are many interactive displays to help you understand the difference between the poor and the rich of the era, and also to understand the lifestyle that was required by those pioneering settlers of this area and so many other parts of Australia. On On the 27th of June 1876, Edward Trickett became Australia's first international sporting champion when he defeated Henry Sadler of England on the River Thames for the World Champion Scullers Trophy. I bet you didn't know that. Let's not forget one of the main attractions of the museum, Captain Thunderbolt. Frederick Ward was born around 1835. He worked across many stations in New South Wales as a general hand from the time he was 11 years old onwards. He would run into trouble with the law as part of a horse and cattle stealing operation. He was sentenced and sent to Cockatoo Island. He escaped from there and took to bushranging, and 6 years later he met his death at the hand of a young constable. And that's just a snapshot of what's available at the McCrossin Mill Museum in Uralla in the New England tablelands of New South Wales. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you get the opportunity, it's well worth stopping in for a look at some great exhibitions. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.